At this time, I'd like to introduce some of our distinguished guests. State Representative Scott Storms. Windsor Locks First Selectman Chris Purvitt. The Adjutant General of Connecticut, Major General Fran Yvonne. The Assistant Adjutant General of Connecticut, Brigadier General Jerry McDonald. Father Robert O'Grady of Mary, Gate of Heaven Parish. Ed Sabatka, life member of American Legion Post 36. And our keynote speaker today, State Veteran Affairs Commissioner Thomas Sadi. And our two most honored guests, Terry Chapman, Master Sergeant Chapman's mother, and Lori Chapman Longfritz, John's sister. I'll now ask Father O'Grady to give today's invocation. All rise and uncover.
Thank you. Let us bow our heads now and pray for God's blessing. Loving, gracious God and Father of all, we come before you today with hearts filled with gratitude and respect for the exemplary example of dedication and self-sacrifice of one man, Master Sergeant John Chapman, who gave his life in the cause of freedom. Freedom is your most precious gift to us. It is that which enhances our dignity as human beings and as your children. It is freedom that provides the bedrock for peace, justice, human dignity, and worth. Yet, there is a cost to this freedom, and can be measured by the bravery, tears, and blood shed on almost every continent by our American soldiers. It can be measured by the grieving hearts of mothers and fathers, whose sons and daughters sacrificed in battle now leave an empty seat at the dinner table of family and community. Yet their loss is not in vain, for by their self-sacrifice and example, they have planted the seeds of hope and peace for future generations. Those generations will take up the same cause for liberty and pursuit of happiness. That seed, planted by the sacrifice of Master Sergeant John Chapman, is now rooted and growing well here today, in our community of Windsor Locks, in the state of Connecticut, and our country. Let us be thankful today for the life and spirit of John Chapman, and may God not only have a special place for him in eternity, but may God also bless us and our country, as we too keep ever so bright that flame of liberty and freedom. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Please cover and take your seats. Commissioner Sadi will now present the memorial dedication address.
Thank you, Colonel Barry, members of the Chapman family, Major General Yvonne, Selectman Kervick, Reverend O'Grady, state legislators, officials, and very importantly, veteran service members and our guests. I'm humbled to be here today as we remember the life and heroic actions of Master Sergeant John A. Chapman, who was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor on August 22nd, 2018, the first airman to receive the Medal of Honor since the Vietnam War. As I thought about what I would say here today, I struggled because I simply couldn't compose in my mind remarks that I felt would do justice to Master Sergeant Chapman's legacy. I looked at my own two children and thought about Master Sergeant Chapman's family, his mother, sister, all who loved him, who supported him through his military career, who celebrated his successes, who prayed for his safe return when he deployed, and who grieved when they received the news that he had fallen. How does one speak to that? I didn't have the honor of knowing Master Sergeant Chapman, so I made it my mission to learn about him and what he did on that snow-covered mountain in Afghanistan 16 years ago. What I learned was that Master Sergeant Chapman was a son and a husband, a father to two girls, a brother, and a friend to so many. I start with the personal relationships because we all must remember that the fallen, like Master Sergeant Chapman throughout our history, are not just names on a plaque or statistics in a report or a line in a history book. They were someone's son or daughter. They were husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, brothers, sisters, friends, and neighbors who sacrificed their lives in combat on the mantle of freedom in service to their country and to their brothers and sisters in arms, just as Master Sergeant Chapman did. He served, he fought, and he made the ultimate sacrifice to save others. I watched the drone footage on that mountain and listened to and read the testimonials of those who served with Master Sergeant Chapman. What I saw, what I heard, what I read, and what I learned about him was that he was a man who was fiercely loyal and dedicated, always professional yet personable, a true friend who placed others before him, who placed the mission before himself, and who placed his teammates before himself. Those who knew him and loved him and who served with him say that if he was with us to receive the Medal of Honor, he would not consider it a recognition of his actions, but instead would consider it recognition of the actions of those with whom he served. On that day in March 2002, Master Sergeant Chapman and his teammates voluntarily reinserted into heavily fortified Al-Qaeda positions to rescue a Navy SEAL. Without regard for his own safety, Master Sergeant Chapman immediately engaged the enemy, and although under heavy fire, he assaulted and cleared a bunker, killing multiple Al-Qaeda fighters. He then moved forward to assault a machine gun position that was firing on his team, and although severely wounded, he continued to assault the enemy positions, providing crucial protection and time for his teammates. Although not in the official citation, in the after-action report I showed that Master Sergeant Chapman had received multiple wounds, had expended all his ammunition, and that bruising on his body demonstrated that he had engaged in hand-to-hand combat before succumbing to his wounds. His actions exemplify the utmost gallantry, valor, and distinguish himself above others because he placed others above himself. It is therefore fitting that we dedicate this memorial in honor of a humble hero, Master Sergeant John A. Chapman. May it stand as a permanent testament to his service to his country and his teammates, and to communicate to current and future generations the importance of service to country and the debt that this nation and all of us owe to men like John A. Chapman, who served and sacrificed so that we may continue to live free. To all who have served and all who continue to serve, I thank you for your service to our nation. I thank your families for serving with you, because the families serve with their service members. May God bless our veterans, the members of our armed forces, and the United States of America. Thank you.
Welcome to the Windsor Locks Amphitheater, which until about 6:30 last night existed only in the dangerous space between my right ear and my left ear. To those visiting Windsor Locks, we extend to you from all of our citizens our warmest welcome. And we hope that before you leave, you will have come to believe, as we do, that Windsor Locks is a very special place. And now, I would like to introduce another Windsor Locks boy, State Representative Scott Storms of Connecticut's 60th District, who will introduce our distinguished guests.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure and privilege to introduce some of our visiting guests and dignitary this afternoon. We are very, very pleased that Terry Chapman, mother of Master Sergeant John Chapman, is joining us back in Windsor Locks. Welcome home. We are also pleased to have John's sister, Lori Chapman Lungfritz, with us again. We're indeed honored to have the governor of the great state of Connecticut, Governor Daniel P. Malloy, with us this afternoon. And our United States Congressman John Larson is here today. Our Lieutenant Governor, Nancy Wyman. Major General Francis J. Evon, Jr., Adjutant General of the Connecticut National Guard. Brigadier General Gerald McDonald, Assistant Adjutant General of the Connecticut National Guard. United States Air Force Colonel Claude K. Tudor, Jr., Commander of the United States Air Force 24th Special Operations Wing. Our Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, Major Thomas J. Sadi. We have Roger Pearl, the Commander of the VFW Smalley Brothers Post 6123. David McKemmy, Commander American Legion, Gency Viola, Post 36. We have State Senator John Kissel with us today. And State Senator Kevin Witkos, also representing one of our major sponsors, Eversource Energy, today. We are pleased to have State Representative Greg Stokes from Enfield with us today. Mr. Andy Borgia, representing a sponsor, or one of our major sponsors, JBS Sports Management, LLC. Is he here? And Mr. Edward Malley, who is representing another major sponsor, All American Waste, Inc. And our first selectman, Mr. Chris Korvick, has to come back up, but he's done a major job in putting this all together. Give him a hand.
There's a lot of military here today, so precision matters. 211, we're good. I really want to thank our local veterans organizations. Our VFW Post 36 and our American Legion Post 6123 taking the lead in organizing today's events. We do our utmost in Windsor Locks to honor and care for our veterans. And these two organizations, they lead, they're out in the forefront of that all the time. And there's no different with this event. We can't thank them enough for their hard work. I also want to thank all the folks, and there are so many of them, who immediately embraced this effort to celebrate John Chapman's life and dedication, and immediately stepped forward to ask, how can I help? It was an amazing response. People, in most cases figuratively, but in some cases literally, dropped out of the sky to participate and help. That one didn't go over, huh? Okay. At this point, please rise as the United States Air Force Heritage Brass Band leads us in the national anthem. before we go on to our speakers, I would also just like to acknowledge all of the people and organizations who contributed to the John Chapman Memorial Fund so that we could erect the wonderful monument to him in front of Memorial Hall. We hit and then exceeded our goal in very short order. Any funds in excess of what is needed to erect and perpetually maintain the monument will be applied to any unmet costs of this event. And any balance will be divided between our VFW and American Legion posts on the condition that they use the funds to aid our local veterans. One of the many roles of our first speaker is to serve as Commander-in-Chief of our Connecticut National Guard. And I can tell you that he has embraced that role and worked tirelessly to secure funding to upgrade aging National Guard facilities during his tenure, including those right here at Camp Hartel and Windsor Locks, to the point that Connecticut's National Guard facilities are now among the finest in the United States, which is only right, because our National Guard members are without question the finest in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you a true friend of the town of Windsor Locks, the Governor of the great state of Connecticut, Daniel P. Malloy.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for allowing myself and the Lieutenant Governor to participate in today's events. Let me begin by saluting all of you. Norman Rockwell couldn't picture a community better than you present yourselves on this day. Your remembrance, your honor, your steadfastness, your support of family and institutions is quite admirable and is something that in parts of our country is missing. So I want to thank you for honoring this memory. To the family, thank you for joining us and being part of this day. And thank you for raising him up and being part of his life. And thank you for, along with this community, making him such a strong and wonderful and powerful and brave individual. You know, days like this in my life are interesting. I just came from a fire memorial where we honored the 342 members of the fire service in Connecticut's history who have made the ultimate sacrifice. And then to come over here and participate in a ceremony honoring one of 1.2 million service people from the state of Connecticut throughout our history. To do that in the state that George Washington called the provision state without which that first war could never have been won. To understand the contributions of the people of Connecticut and the sacrifices that have been made in order to form this nation and preserve this nation and protect this nation in foreign wars. And to understand the undertaking that had to be engaged in following those terrible attacks on 9/11, which destroyed so many lives at the World Trade Center in Pennsylvania and at the Pentagon. An appropriate response that ultimately was required to keep all of us in this community and in our state safe from the threats of terrorism and those who would bring it to our shores and have brought it to our shores. In Master Sergeant Chapman's case, he did not need to go to that theater. He did not have to be part of what was transpiring so far away. And yet, after 9/11, he felt the obligation to make himself available, understanding that anyone in that theater had a very good chance of seeing their life ended. But the heroic way in which Master Sergeant Chapman sacrificed, not simply on behalf of our nation, not simply in remembrance of that which was done by others before him, but on a day in which he rose to protect the lives of his fellow servicemen, is quite remarkable. The story, as you all understand, but I will repeat just for a part, of his wounding and taken for dead. His rise from that circumstance to go on to protect others, to eventually enter that bunker which he had cleared himself and fired upon individuals who would destroy him and destroy our nation. And then ultimately to see that second helicopter come in and take fire, and 5 of his comrades lose their lives at that time. He rose again, prepared to sacrifice his life for the second or third or fourth or perhaps 5th time that day to protect those individuals. Who among us could say for certain that we would have done what he did? Who among us would have responded exactly that way? And yet here in this community, you raised him up, you honor him, and we all share in the honor that you are bringing about today. Great Americans are produced in a great nation that never forgets the sacrifices that have been made by those who came before us to create us, to protect us, and to make sure that we forever shine as a monument to the sacrifices made by men and women who came before us. Thank you for inviting me.
Our next speaker is our United States representative from Connecticut's 1st Congressional District. He is a leader on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee, and he is a staunch advocate for our veterans, with particular focus on the delivery of quality health care to our veterans and their families. Please welcome U.S. Representative John Larson.
Let me first extend an apology on behalf of Congressman Courtney, who could not be here today, but we were together, as was the entire delegation, when we paused to honor John Chapman, a true American hero. I want to commend President Trump and the First Lady Ivanka Trump. The dignified manner in which the Medal of Honor ceremony took place in the White House was something that I know the family, but certainly all of us as Americans share. It was great to be there with Valerie and his 2 daughters, Madison and Brianna, and his mother, Terry, who is here today with us as well. And we're joined by his sister, Lori, as well. President Kennedy said that communities reveal an awful lot about themselves in the memorials they create and in the people they honor. In John Chapman, as you heard the governor chronicle what he did in the line of duty, the selfless bravery in the heat of combat, wounded and never thinking of himself, but thinking of his fellow comrades. It was a very touching ceremony at the White House. And I don't think anyone, including anyone in this nation, couldn't help but be moved by the great sacrifice of this American hero from Windsor Locks, Connecticut. I've often thought how difficult it is to answer the call, especially when today in America, less than 1% of the nation serves in our military. All branches, our reserves and National Guard combined, and that includes the Peace Corps and Vista, etc. And to have the exemplary Americans like John Chapman step forward and do what generations before him have done. It's a tip of the hat to all those who serve this great nation of ours. A round of applause, please, for all the veterans who put their lives on the line, day in, day out, less than 1% of a nation. Communities reveal an awful lot about themselves. In the memorials they create, in the people that they honor. Today, Windsor Locks, the state of Connecticut, a grateful nation, stand in awe of this incredible American, this American hero who ever deserves our great gratitude and respect, who paid the ultimate price on behalf of a grateful community, state, and nation. God bless you. God bless America. God bless John Chapman and his family.
Our next speaker is the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Connecticut. One of her highest priorities is the welfare of Connecticut's military and veterans. It is particularly appropriate that she be here today because in 2007, she spearheaded the effort to establish Connecticut's Wall of Honor, a tribute at the state capitol that honors the military men and women who lost their lives in Afghanistan and Iraq. Please welcome Lieutenant Governor Nancy Wyman.
Thank you all very, very much. First, Terry and Laurie, thank you. Thank you for everything you did to raise and be a sister to a wonderful, wonderful young man. The first time I got to meet some of the Chapman family was in 2007. And I have to tell you that I was so impressed by the people who they were, his wife and his two daughters. They were little, and all I kept thinking when we put this picture up on the wall is how do people go after losing a loved one and continue to go? The Chapman family has done an awful lot since John is gone, and we thank you for reminding us all the time about a wonderful, wonderful man. You know, I look around and see a lot of familiar faces of men in uniform, and I have to say that I had now realized how fortunate I am in my life to have met so many great, honorable people. To see how you came together here in Windsor Locks, what normally would be called a quiet kind of town, come together to honor our hero, your townsman, to honor him in the best way possible with all of us around, with the honor of having people from all branches of the armed forces here, our first responders that are up here. This is what our country's about. And the governor mentioned it first, and I'm going to repeat it. If Norman Rockwell was alive today, this would be the picture of America, right here in Windsor Locks. From the bottom of my heart, I thank all of you that put this together. I do see John Chapman every day when we walk through the hall. And his is the first. He was the first of the 65 men and women that we lost from Connecticut during this time. He had one of the best pictures up there, and he had this slight smile and his head tilted. And his people come by all the time, and the children learn that it's not old people that are in the service, because so many kids think it's all old. They saw John, they look at John's face and know he was a young, vibrant young man. I'm hoping that those pictures stay there for a very, very long time, so that people can learn and never forget what John Chapman did for us, this country, this state, and this town. God bless you all.
Before we introduce our keynote speaker, I just want to recognize two people. It's one that's rather personal to me because I coached both of these young men on the ball fields in Windsor Locks. The first is a young man I coached in t-ball, and he was kind of gangly, I would say, even as a young man. But he just drove 27 hours to get here, to this event, from where he's stationed in Kansas. Sergeant Matthew Shane, would you just rise to be recognized? Way to go, Matt. And the second I coached a little bit longer, up into the junior level. And if I referred to Matt as gangly, there's really no adjective to refer to this other fellow. But somehow he got kind of close to my heart. Both of Matthew and this other fellow's mom were in my high school class. He is here serving in the same branch of the Air Force that John Chapman served in, 24th. And please recognize Staff Sergeant Ryan Conroy. Boy, Ryan. We do our best to raise him right here in Windsor Locks. Our keynote speaker is the commander, 24th Special Operations Wing at Hurlburt Field, Florida. He is responsible for preparing special tactics forces for rapid global employment to enable air power success. The 24th Special Operations Wing is the only wing in the Air Force dedicated to special tactics airmen. Prior to this assignment, he was acting director for clandestine operations, global access and mission integration, technical collection and special programs in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence at the Pentagon. He was born in Cape Canaveral, Florida, and commissioned through the ROTC program at Troy State University in Alabama. He has spent the preponderance of his career in special operations ground combat assignments and deployed extensively in support of joint and coalition special forces, supporting combat, humanitarian assistance, and peacekeeping and peace enforcement operations globally. We really thank him for being here. Please welcome Colonel Claude K. Tudor, Jr.
Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my incorrigible soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. The use of strong descriptive language in William Ernest Henley's poem Invictus clearly conveys the theme to never lose hope, no matter the circumstance, that you control your fate and you decide your future. That is what Technical Sergeant John Chapman did on top of the highest mountain we have ever fought on in March of 2002. John was the master of his fate. He paid the ultimate sacrifice to save his teammates. And it's that very character that was originally forged here in Windsor Locks. Please allow me a minute to say thank you to the Master of Ceremonies, Honorable Christopher Kervick. Thank you. The entire town of Windsor Locks for inviting the Air Force Special Tactics Enterprise to be part of this celebration. Thank you, Governor Malloy, and all the other U.S. and state representatives for honoring John with us. Please also allow me to include Major General Levin, the Adjutant General of Connecticut National Guard, Colonel Gwynn, the commander of the 103rd Airlift Wing, who also supported John's teammates who jumped in the red team colors. Thank you very much for that. I would also never forgive myself if I didn't recognize our first responders who give so much every day. It's very much a team effort. I must also do a very special call out for a young lady, a very special young lady, Mary Tursevich, one of John's best friends growing up. I was very honored to meet her this morning, and I just can't say enough, but thank you for being here, and thank you for being John's best friend. A special thank you to our Gold Star families today, especially John's mom, Terry, otherwise just known as Mom. And Sister Lori for sharing John with us for over 30 years. Thank you very much for that. Not only is today a special day for Mom and Lori because we are here to honor John, but it's also the last Sunday in September, which since 1936 has been proclaimed as the Gold Star Mothers and Families Day. Today is a solemn reminder that these families, the families of our fallen service members, bear the burden of their losses forever. Air Force Special Tactics is an all-volunteer and selectively manned, very high-caliber career field with the highest quality of men. And even then, John stood out. During the initial assertion onto the mountain type, the MH-47 Chinook helicopter carrying John and the Joint Special Operations Reconnaissance Team was ambushed. A rocket-propelled grenade struck the helicopter, and bullets ripped through the fuselage, throwing Navy Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts onto the enemy-infested mountaintop below. The severely damaged helicopter could not return for Roberts and had to perform a crash landing several miles away. This began the chain of events that led to unparalleled acts of valor by numerous Joint Special Operations Forces. I don't know how to really express the words and the power of the messages that our Secretary, our Chief of Staff, and our Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force delivered throughout that week. But they truly honored John, his teammates, and the Gold Star families of those who fell on that same mountain in March of 2002. While at the Air Force Memorial after John was promoted to Master Sergeant, the designer and plank holder of the Special Tactics Unit where John served most of his career as a combat controller also delivered remarks. Here, retired Colonel John Coach Carney told a standing room only crowd that he was often asked, "What's so special about special operations?" His answer was simple: John Chapman. His remarks needed no further explanation. After the formal ceremony was over, our Special Tactics community led our fellow airmen in a Special Tactics tradition, memorial push-ups. Memorial push-ups are a way of us to honor all of our fallen. Our senior enlisted member started his commands in the formation of over 700 airmen in attendance at the Air Force Memorial, plunged to the ground in the push-up position. We did an extra one for teamwork. We did one for our fallen comrades. And then we did an extra one for Master Sergeant John Chapman. After we all snapped back to attention, I could see the mass of the formation. I knew this was something special. But out of the corner of my eye, I realized just how special. About 2 months ago, we had another Special Tactics combat controller lose his right leg above the knee during combat operations in Afghanistan. He's been getting treatment in Washington, D.C. and was able to attend the Air Force Memorial events. For some people, receiving extensive injuries may hinder their drive, their will, their dedication. But just like that poem of Invictus, Justin Day never lost hope, and he has taken control of his fate. It's the commitment and passion for Special Tactics as our way of life. He did the memorial push-ups with the help of his teammates, helping him down and helping him stand up. You see, he wasn't going to let that tradition go undone. This took my breath away and reminded me that every day, John's story will be told by those who served with him, to those that are being coached, trained, and mentored today. His legacy will live on, and our teammates, present and those of the future, will strive to live by those same virtues that made John. Those virtues that started here in Windsor Locks, the thread that was woven in this 9.5-mile city on the Connecticut River, by John's parents, Terry and Jean, by his siblings, Kevin, Lori, Tammy, by the parents in the neighborhood, by friends, Brian, Skeeter, and Mary, by the swim and soccer coaches at the pool and the fields, by the teachers in your schools, and by the values of all of those in this community. Yes, we're all made of DNA, but we are also influenced by our environments. And John's was here in Windsor Locks. This city is full of rich traditions, hard work, compassion, and pride, which makes it no surprise that John became the man he was. The teammate, the neighbor, the friend, the star athlete, both in soccer and diving, a brother, a son, father, husband. Developed by the attitude, awareness, and authenticity that also built this city. I am very thankful for you allowing us to spend time with you and for me to share just a small glimpse into our world that John joined after leaving Windsor Locks. This is very humbling for me since John is just not a name of a person or someone in the Air Force. He was my teammate. So on behalf of our entire United States Air Force, the Special Operations Command, the Air Force Special Operations Command, and of course, the Special Tactics Enterprise, we cannot thank you enough for having this ceremony to remember our brother and our teammate, and for building the memorial that will forever serve as a reminder to this city and to all of those who that visit it of what John stood for and what he sacrificed. John Chapman is looking down right now, and he is saying, "This is my city. I am part of it, and I am proud of it." We are also very proud of it. Mason, if you would please come forward. We've got a couple of presentos that we're going to do.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Mom, would you please come forward? Sister, please come forward. Mr. Kerbeck, please come forward. Colonel Tudor, please come forward. General, please come forward. That concludes the presento. Thank you.
Just one last thank you for everybody doing this and bringing this together. We are very grateful, and just thank you very much for honoring John, our teammate. Thank you.
When we decided that we should hold this event, and it really was no decision, it was a given that we would hold this event. But we reached out to John's family. We wanted to make sure that everything we did, they were comfortable with. And it was Lori that told me that, oh, we're very comfortable, but we want this to be a celebration of John's life. They view his receipt of the Congressional Medal of Honor as a happy event, and they want to celebrate all those qualities that led to that. I hope that we have done honor to that request, Mrs. Chapman and Lori. At this point, that concludes the commemorative section of this proceeding. We're going to take a short pause, and then within 2-3 minutes or so, we're going to begin the musical portion of our program. Thank you very much.